Hello, Life Point Church. Welcome back for day 3 in our lesson, What Does God Require? We left off yesterday talking about King Saul and the commandment that he was given through Samuel, the prophet, directing what God had directed Saul to do, to go and to destroy Hittites and all that they had, to wipe out what God had instructed him to do. But we saw that instead of following that command all the way or completely, he decided that it would be better to keep the king of those people and keep the best of their livestock. So we see here that there was a point where Saul said, okay, what God commanded, what God has asked for, I think there's a better way. And we see that this is one of the points in Saul's reign where he kind of split and went a different way than what he had commanded. It's important for us in our walk with God that if we're going to be successful, if we're going to do what God requires of us, that we have accountability. It's important that we have someone in our life, that spiritual figure in our life, our pastor, whoever it may be, that can come to us and ask the hard questions and kind of ask, what's going on, and even maybe to check up on us and see, hey, how are you doing with what God requires? What's going on here? So we see in Saul's case that this was kind of the prophet Samuel. And after Saul had kept King Agag and kept the best of the livestock, Samuel showed up on the scene. God told Samuel of his disappointment with King Saul. And the following day, Samuel went. And Saul's first words to Samuel, if you go to 1 Samuel 15, verse 13, was, "Blessed be thou of the Lord. I have performed the commandment of the Lord." That's what Saul greets Samuel with. I have performed the commandment of the Lord. It was almost like an attempt to bluster his way forward, to kind of, you know what? I know actually I didn't really do everything I should have, so let me just put the good stuff first. Let me just put this up front, and maybe Samuel won't notice the other stuff. Quite obviously, the king had not performed the entire commandment of the Lord, although he had completed most of what God had asked for. But partial obedience is not obedience at all. Partial obedience is not obedience at all. No matter how much Saul blustered to Samuel about having performed the commandment of the Lord, there was glaring evidence of Saul's disobedience. Saul's bluster did not confuse Samuel as to his task. Samuel had come to the military encampment to confront Saul for having not done what God had asked him to do. At times, we need a godly leader who will appropriately confront us with hard questions. Samuel was not being nosy or trying to ruin Saul's life and make decisions for him. Neither are the leaders who address concerns with us. Our leaders are concerned with our relationship with God. Without delay, Samuel asked Saul about the sound of sheep and oxen. What's going on? Why am I hearing sheep and oxen here? Saul immediately passed the buck. He portrayed his soldiers as those responsible for keeping the livestock alive. If this were actually the case, it would mean that Saul was a leader who no longer influenced the people under him because they didn't follow his command. So either way, not a good situation. Additionally, Saul justified the decision to keep the livestock as part of his men's desire to serve God. 1 Samuel 15:15, this was Saul's reasoning. It said, "The people spared the best of the sheep and the oxen to sacrifice unto the Lord thy God." Yes, maybe it's not exactly right, but it was their idea because they wanted to do something that would make God happy. It was essentially what Saul was telling Samuel here. When we sin, when we make a mistake, it is best to take full responsibility for that mistake, for that sin. Is there any justification for willing disobedience to God? There isn't. Would Saul blaming his action on someone else have set well with an all-knowing God? I don't think so. The Lord knows the motives that influence our actions. When God calls us to account for a misdeed that we have done, we should never pass the blame to someone else. We should immediately say, yes, I have done wrong. We should repent for it, and we should get back on the right track. I hope that you all have a blessed rest of your day, and that you will join us again for the lesson tomorrow, day 4. Take care.